If you've ever wondered how it's possible for a sound source to break a wine glass, then we're going to be discussing what resonance is and how that relates to that specific and kind of shocking scenario. And the first thing we're going to start off with is talking about what resonance is. So it's when some kind of forced vibration, and when I say forced vibration, it's basically some kind of vibration that's coming from an external source meets the natural frequency of an object. And then when that happens, there's a dramatic rise in the amplitude and energy level. Now, one of the most common analogies that's used is a person on a swing. So we'll talk about how that works, and then we'll relate that to how a wine glass is resonated and how it potentially breaks. So say, for example, the person swinging back and forth, they go forward, and then they go backwards, and then swing up to their highest amplitude, and then they start to swing back down again. Now let's just pretend that there is no friction, there's no air resistance, there's no loss of energy. So the person just keeps on swinging back and forth. That would be their natural frequency, the rate at which they're moving back and forth. Now, let's pretend that it takes 1 second for them to complete their forward motion and then 1 second to complete their backward motion. Now, if someone were to push them exactly every 2 seconds, that would actually increase the amplitude and energy greatly. So think about that. Once they reach their maximum amplitude, they're momentarily at rest right over here. And then you apply a forward force to accelerate them, then that's going to cause them to move at a slightly higher amplitude over here. But if they're on their way back, if they're at this part right over here, and then you push them, you're actually going to decrease their amplitude. And if they're on their way forward already, maybe they're right over here, and you try to give them a push as they're already moving away from you, you're not going to be able to apply as much force. You might give them a little bit more amplitude, but not quite as much. So this particular spot right over here is going to give you the maximum amplitude. So if you don't match that exact rhythm of how they're swinging back and forth, then you won't get the maximum amplitude out of the swing. So that's basically what resonance is. They have some natural way that the thing likes to move back and forth, which is some sort of vibration. This one's kind of like a big vibration. And then we have some kind of outside source. In this case, it's the person that is matching how they swing back and forth. And if they're a little bit off, then it's not going to result in this big significant jump in amplitude and energy. Okay, so let's go ahead and relate that to how sound works. Now, say for example, you have a wine glass over here and it has a natural frequency of 350 hertz. Okay, what I mean by natural frequency is if you touch or tap the glass, it's going to ring with a certain tone every time. And if you grab different wine glasses and tap them, they might have a slightly higher or lower pitch based on how much the glass wiggles back and forth. So this one has a regular frequency of 350. So that means it flexes in and out 350 times per second. That's the natural frequency. Now, here's an external source or a forced vibration. Here's a speaker that creates a couple different regions. As it moves forward, it creates compressions and rarefactions. The compressions are high pressure, and the rarefactions are low pressure. So if the speaker is creating a sound wave, that means it's vibrating back and forth, kind of like this. It's going to the right and to the left, to the right, to the left. And then when it pushes to the right, it compresses the air molecules. When it goes back to the left, it allows them to spread out, and you have several high and low pressure regions. Now, what happens is these high and low pressure regions start to affect the wine glass. Now, if you wonder what you're looking at here, this would be the top view of the wine glass. So that would be the portion right over here if you're taking a look at the top portion of the wine glass. So if we're taking a look at the top view, we have these compressions and rarefactions that are hitting the wine glass. Now, once the compressions hit the wine glass, it's going to cause it to be bent inwards. And when the rarefactions, the low pressure regions hit it, it's going to flex back outwards. So if the glass is completely still as this sound source is hitting it, it's going to push it in, push it out, or allow it to get pulled out, push in, out, and then so on. Now, if this forced vibration is exactly 350 hertz, that's when you have resonance, because it's matching the way that the glass flexes back and forth. So if you were to look at it in slow motion or up close, zoomed in all the way, you would see that the glass itself flexes outward and then flexes inward and then flexes outward and flexes inward, and it does 350 cycles of that every second. So if this thing is pushing it at the right time, then it's going to have a large jump in its amplitude. For example, this over here is equivalent to the swing moving back to its maximum amplitude. It's flexing out as far as possible, and at that particular moment, the compression comes in and pushes it in. Now, the swing, quote unquote, is about to move forward and then flexes in to its maximum amplitude on the other end, and then the rarefaction comes in and then allows the glass to come back out. Now, if those high and low pressure regions match the rate at which it's flexing back and forth, then you have the greatest amount of amplitude. So for the swing, the amplitude is this much higher swinging back and forth motion. For the glass, it's basically this circular top part of the glass that's flexing outward and then inward. And then once you increase the volume of this 350 hertz source, then you get some higher intensity in the high pressure and low pressure regions. At that particular moment, once you have a resonating frequency of 350 that matches the 350 of the glass, and you have enough volume, then you can potentially break the glass. So that can be done with the human voice, much more easily done with a speaker and some kind of frequency generator. Now, resonance is very popular topic when it comes to sound, because you have resonating frequencies, and when you have resonating frequencies, you hear a large jump in its volume. And then in other cases, you might actually just physically see larger jumps in its amplitude as a swing does when it's moving back and forth. So I hope that was helpful and helping you understand the idea of resonance and how it applies to sound waves resonating glasses and potentially breaking them. Thank you for watching and listening.